Here's what you're going to get from today's episode. I'm going to start with a motivating story about a private art collection event. I went to JP Morgan Chase's private art collection last night. It's a good story. I'm going to share that. And I think it's quite motivating in several ways. Then a lesson with what to do with any content that you have that performs well. If you make a TikTok and it does well, a YouTube video and it does well, a LinkedIn post and it does well, a blog entry, a newsletter and it does well. This is a pretty good anecdote. I think it's very useful. I'm going to give you the state of affairs on Twitter ads and a fun example of why dumbing down is extremely important. I just learned this firsthand. It really surprised me. We are 44 seconds into episode 44 of The Edward Show. Let's jump into it. Last night, I was invited to see the private art collection from JP Morgan Chase. It's at some new offices here in New York City. And I was invited by somebody who I met during my 30-day challenge. I talk about this a lot. I did a 30-day challenge a few weeks ago where I committed to going out and meeting people every single day. I started by going to tech networking events. I just wanted to meet new people. And then when I met somebody interesting, I would invite them to coffee. I want to have strong relationships. I like deep relationships rather than many shallow ones. I would rather have deep relationships than many shallow ones. And so I went to one event. I met this really cool guy. I met this cool guy from Meta who I've talked about on the podcast before. And then we went out for coffee. And last night he invited me to see JP Morgan Chase's private art collection. So this collection, insane collection. My experience there, insane. There are 42,000 pieces total in the collection, and the space that I was at houses only some of their top pieces. This collection was started by David Rockefeller, whose autobiography I would totally recommend. I finished reading that autobiography in September of 2020 when I was living in Kiev, and it's a super motivating autobiography, the autobiography of David Rockefeller. So you enter, and right away you're greeted, well, there's a huge installation. I forget the artist, big famous artist, but the space that I was entering in, I enter and there's all these paintings by Jean Michael, Basquiat. I can pronounce his last name and his first name and not his second name. But it was a bunch of paintings by Basquiat. And so I'm greeted by my friend who invited me, and we get like super high-end whiskey on ice. It's just like big, fat ice cube that takes up pretty much the entirety of the tumbler with whiskey, and there's hors d'oeuvres. And what's crazy is, so this space is so big. It's like 25% of the block that this office tower is on. It's multiple levels. And it's like a museum. And guess how many people are at this event? Like, you probably think, well, it's such a big space, so maybe several hundred. There's like 20 to 30 people max at this event. And so the event, the goal is to attract startups to JP Morgan's startup banking. So let's say you raise a Series B or a Series A, and you need a bank to put the money in. Previously, you might have done Silicon Valley Bank. In fact, I met an executive from Silicon Valley Bank, and she was. And I showed her, I made the most viewed video in the world on the Silicon Valley Bank collapse, and I got to show her that video, and it was kind of funny watching her watch. But yeah, so there's like 20, 30 people in this huge space, and we have like all this amazing art to ourselves. We get a private tour. There's like a Jeff Koons bronze basketball. Like one of these was just sold at auction for $25 million. There's a Super Bowl ring, which I get to put on. Like I said, like so many installations. There's Andy Warhol's. I mean, it was so wild to have this space and so much of it to ourselves. And what's also crazy is many of the pieces here were purchased before the artists were big for only around like $10,000. The head of the collection, or multiple heads, have very good eyes for who is up and coming and who's going to make it, because they got, like, the Basquiats were purchased quite cheap. Now each one of them is worth millions, and they were purchased for tens of thousands. So, and then all these like immaculate conference rooms, and the building is brand new, everything's hyper modern. And so I get to meet a lot of really cool people. I talk for a while to the head of JP Morgan Chase's startup banking division. And then I explore the space by myself. It's so wild. It's so inspiring. Like I leave and I'm so driven. I'm like, oh my God, like so much wealth, so much luxury. And you leave and you're like, I want that. I can do that. It will take time. But I can get there. And that's how you feel when you leave the space. And that's how I felt. When I talked to the head of JP Morgan Chase's startup banking, I told him this story, which brings us to our next part of the pod, which is what do you do with well-performing content? So this is a story that I shared with him because the last 7 days was pretty crazy. A week ago, I made a video about Bobbi Althoff and how she got Drake on her 4-month-old podcast. That's a crazy story. And I made that video. That video gets 850,000 views on TikTok. And then on Saturday, I make another video. Last Saturday, I make another video. That video gets 2.8 million views. That one's about some Instagram Reels trick, which I talk about on another episode. And then I go out. Saturday night, I go out. And so Sunday morning, I'm very hungover. And actually, this story wasn't supposed to be an example of why you should dumb down yourself, but it works as well. So this will work with the ending story, but I'll share it now. And I'm super hungover. It's Sunday afternoon. I send out my weekly newsletter every Sunday. I haven't written it yet. I don't know what I'm going to write it on, but that Bobbi Althoff video did pretty well. And I said, I'm just going to make this about the Bobbi Althoff video because the story is really good. And so in 25 minutes, I write down how Bobbi Althoff got Drake on her 4-month-old podcast, and I send it out to my newsletter for the week. Wrote it in 25 minutes because I was hungover. And then 2 people on the list messaged me privately to tell me it was my best newsletter yet. And then I think the next day I'm like, I should put this on LinkedIn because people said this was so good. So I take the newsletter, I take exactly what I wrote and I put it on LinkedIn. And now it's going viral on LinkedIn. It's up to like 20,000 views on LinkedIn, which is a lot for one of my posts. And all these 2nd degree and 3rd degree connections are reaching out and adding me and liking the post. And it's amazing. So it was doing really well. And then what I do is I take that post and I put it on the entrepreneur subreddit, and it gets to the number 1 on the entrepreneur subreddit with 2.5 million subscribers. The post gets 200,000 views. And at the bottom of the post, I say, if you want the full story on this, listen to my podcast. And I link to the podcast episode where I talk about how Bobbi Althoff gets Drake on her 4-month-old podcast, because I made a podcast about that. And so I took this one piece of well-performing content, which was the TikTok. I turned that into a podcast episode. I turned that into a very well-performing newsletter, a super well-performing LinkedIn post, and a super well-performing Reddit post. And that Reddit post funnels people back to the podcast episode that I made. And I had my best day yesterday for my podcast in terms of listeners. I will say this. The mistake that I made was not putting that post, or not putting the part about my podcast at the beginning of the Reddit post. At the beginning of the Reddit post, I should have said, if you want the full story on this, listen to this podcast, and then gotten into the story. That's what I should have done. But instead, I put that part at the end, and I should have put that part at the beginning. Either way, I think the lesson in, like, if you have a well-performing content, take it and run with it. That lesson still stands, and it was a great week. It was a great week having these 2 viral videos. So, State of Twitter ads. Okay. Twitter discontinued their follower ads where the call to action is a follow button. I loved these ads. I was getting great results with these ads. For like $1, I could get 40 followers and 100,000 impressions. And Twitter ads have gotten more expensive. So I said, maybe I asked myself, I wonder if there was a way to just run like normal ads, just promote like a normal tweet and get followers through that. That's what I saw other users on Twitter, other advertisers on Twitter trying to do that. So I thought maybe I could do that too. And I ran a few ads. First of all, if you try Twitter ads, don't use reach ads, only do engagement ads or website ads. So engagement ads are ads which incentivize people to engage with a post. And reach ads are ones that maximize impressions. And website ads are ones that maximize clicks to a website. What's funny is that if you do engagement ads, you still get more impressions, way more impressions, like times 10 that you do for reach ads. Reach ads really don't work. Reach ads, their purpose is to get impressions. For ads, doesn't work. You should do engagement ads on Twitter. That's my experience so far. So I'm doing these engagement ads on Twitter, thinking maybe I can get followers again through that, even though there is no call to action follow button like there was on the previous ad. Previous ads made it so easy. You read the ad, there's a follow button, you could click follow. That's what the ad was. It was great. Doesn't exist, so I just have to write something and then hope someone will go to my profile and follow me. And I try several different things that are like savvy, that are intellectual about startups, intellectual about technology, smart insights about marketing. I try all these things. And you know what? They don't work. And I'm frustrated. And yesterday, I think of the dumbest ad, and it just made me laugh because it was so dumb. This is what the ad is. The ad says, and it was the most cringe thing that I could think of. It's a big picture of my face, and the copy is, "You will make more money if you follow me." That's what the ad is. "You will make more money if you follow me," followed by a big picture of my face. And I put that up I just wanted to get a reaction from people because the other ads weren't even getting like real engagements. They weren't getting people responding. So I put up this ad just expecting people to laugh at me. And instead I'm getting a lot of followers really fast. Almost to the point, actually it might be better than what I was getting before with follow ads. And the lesson there is dumb your stuff down. Simplify it. Humans are simple creatures. That's what I realized today. I just made a TikTok about that. Humans are simple creatures. We are simple creatures. And a lot of the people who do best with messaging and marketing, they really dumb down their stuff. And if you're a smart person, it can be hard to do that. And that's what I realized with this ad, because it's getting so many followers compared to what I was getting before. And the message is so dumb. I actually put up two that are equally dumb. "You will make more money if you follow me," and "You will get a big house with an elevator if you follow me." I think that's a Tyler the Creator quote. Big house with an elevator. That's from Tyler the Creator. So I say, "You will get a big house with an elevator if you follow me," followed by a picture of my face. Not even a picture of a big house with an elevator. And they're both converting well to followers, even though there's no follow button. And the copy is so dumb. I dumbed it down to the point where it was funny for me. And that's what converts. This is episode 44 of The Edward Show. Thank you so much for listening. This is my daily podcast that I put love into every day. If you like this, you can check out my newsletter. It's over at edwardsturm.com/newsletter. I've been seeing a lot of people come from the podcast to the newsletter, and I'm grateful for all of you. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I enjoyed recording it. Actually, this is like my 5th take recording it. I kept on getting started and just wasn't feeling it. Walked around the block, and this is the good one. This is the one that I'm running with. So thank you so much for listening. I will talk to you again tomorrow. Bye now.